You ever watch a movie and sit there after the credits roll and wonder, how the fuck did this movie ever get made? Well, that's A24's newest project, Lamb. Yeah, I saw the trailer for this. I went to the movies a while back and I've seen some promotional material for it, but didn't really know much about it going into the movie, and it blew me away. This movie is an absolutely wild experience from start to finish, and I would highly recommend everyone see it. Yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna get pretty heavily into spoilers because I don't really know how to talk about this movie without spoiling the entire premise, which is one of the things that makes it so incredible of a watch. So if you haven't seen it yet, just go watch it immediately and then come back and you can watch my thoughts on it. But my thoughts are, it's a really incredible piece of filmmaking. It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. It's also juggling this really complex family dynamic, and it's one of the better films I've seen this year, so definitely go check this one out. But yeah, I'm gonna get into it now. So Lamb is directed by Valdimar Jóhannsson. I think I pronounced that correctly, probably not. And it's a story of a husband and wife who live in Iceland in this beautiful house in the middle of nowhere, and they have a farm together where they raise sheep. Have the sheep out there, they're constantly running the farming equipment, and the beginning of the film is this very slow-paced, really, I think, methodical piece of filmmaking where the director very clearly has an intention and wants you to feel a certain way early on. Within 25-30 minutes of the movie, bringing in a jarring plot point that completely changes the entire scope of what the film is. Yeah, we're introduced to this couple, and the very first shot of the film is this beautiful long shot of these horses that are in the middle of like whiteout conditions, and you just hear something breathing really heavily and approaching them, and it scares all the horses. Then this entity, whatever it is, approaches the farmhouse, and you see all of the sheep in the barn, and it scares them all, and then it just cuts away and we're introduced to this family. Noomi Rapace is the lead actress, and she does an incredible job. The actor who plays her husband, who I will horribly butcher his name if I try to say it, does a fantastic job. And what I was really impressed with was the ability of the director to convey the relationship that these two have through mostly just physical action, the way they treat each other and the way they act around each other. This movie is very minimalist when it comes to dialogue. There's not a whole lot of it, especially in the first act of the film. It's very quiet. Third act, it's more dialogue heavy when other plot points are introduced. Yeah, it's a very slow, quiet film, and I think it works to its benefit. Yeah, so this family is shown taking care of these sheep and helping the mothers give birth to new lambs. And it shows it in very realistic detail. And we're shown a scene where they assist one of these sheep in giving birth, and they both kind of look at this lamb. It's completely off screen. You don't see anything. And they both kind of look at each other. They have very strange expressions on their face. And Rapace's character takes this lamb into the house, and they start treating it like it's a human baby. And we don't really know why for a little while, because the camera hides it from us, and it does so very well. There's a shot where a mother who gave birth to this lamb, the sheep, keeps coming to the house window and calling out for its child. And when it does, you know, Noomi Rapace's character keeps like shooing it away. And we get a shot, they're putting this baby into the crib, and we get this shot of the lamb, and it's like pressed up against the window, and then it cuts away. We get this for a period of time, and after a while it's revealed that this lamb is a half lamb, half human hybrid, where it has a human hand and a lamb. a lamb hand, and the head is a lamb and the body is a child's body, and they dress it up in human clothes, walk it around, eats at the dinner table, and they name it Ada. And it's one of the cutest and most horrifying things I've ever seen in a movie. I just thought of Eraserhead the whole time, which is like, obviously Eraserhead, it's the baby in that is deformed and disgusting looking and awful. Whereas this movie kind of takes it the other way, where this is a beautiful lamb and it's a child, and it's just kind of like the shock value of seeing that on screen is what takes you by surprise. Yeah, there's a lot I like about this movie. The first thing being the cinematography. This movie is beautiful. Being shot in Iceland in the middle of nowhere at this farmhouse, you get these incredibly long shots of just the scenery and the mountains, and it is beautiful. It's a very foggy movie. It's very vivid. The color palette is very vivid. It's dull and dreary, but it's also bright and vivid at the same time, and it really works. I think it complements this idea of the mundanity of farmhouse life, doing the same thing over and over again, beauty of the simplicity of that lifestyle, and juggling that tone through the cinematography. It really works. There's very symmetrical shots in this movie that are just gorgeous, of just rooms of houses or windows. The camera doesn't do a ton of moving. It's very static. Most of the shots are very locked down. I think it's gorgeous. Some of the best cinematography I've seen all year. As I said before, the performances are fantastic. Noomi Rapace does a fantastic job, and the character, the actor who plays her husband, that I would horribly mispronounce his name, they really sort of draw you into these characters' lives, and they're hardworking people who provide for themselves and are seemingly isolated from the rest of the world. And the thing I like about this movie is it's not ham-fisted, in the sense that you have information given to you through context clues and less just spilled out to you as an audience member. So for instance, as an audience member, you're asking yourself, well, why in the world would these people be so okay with raising this human hybrid child? Somewhere through the midpoint of the movie, Noomi Rapace's character is walking with Ada to this cemetery, and they walk there, and the cemetery's in their plot of land, and they go to the cemetery, and one of the headstones says Ada on it, and you can assume that this is Noomi Rapace's character has had multiple miscarriages. There's 3 crucifixes in the ground there, and so you can say, okay, as a family, they've tried to have a baby before, they've attempted to do this multiple times and have had no success, and so this is seemingly their opportunity to raise a child and raise it on their own. And that adds a nice depth to the film, but doesn't spell it out to you to where, as an audience member, it's like, oh boy, I had multiple miscarriages, and they talk about it a lot. It's just visual information that guides the viewer, and this is a very visual film. Most of what you're going to learn about these characters is through the imagery on the screen and less about what's occurring in the dialogue. So yeah, somewhere through the midpoint of the movie, a car pulls out way outside of that farmhouse land, and these 3 people pull this guy out of their car and just kind of throw him to the middle of nowhere, and he walks for a long period of time, and you find out that this character is Noomi Rapace's husband's brother, and they have this weird dynamic, him and Noomi Rapace, where they clearly had a past relationship or a fling or something of that nature, and introduced to that level of complexity in their family life as well, because it seems like she had feelings for him at some point, but is very resistant because she seems to be very happy with her husband. And so you have that complex emotional dynamic contrasted with them trying to raise this baby. And then you have things like Ada's birth mother, the sheep that gave birth, keeps coming up to the window, and it starts really irritating Noomi Rapace because she sees Ada as her own child. She ends up shooting that sheep outside of the window and killing Ada's biological mother, and it's very jarring, it's intense, but you get that dynamic of how important raising this child is to her character, and the pain and the tragedy of losing that child and being in this isolated space where your glimmer of hope, other than, you know, the job that you do on a day-to-day basis, is your family. And you've been denied that family for such a long period of time. And there's a rage to it, and you're, as an audience member, you're upset and you're angry when it happens, when she kills the sheep, but at the same time you feel for her because you understand what she's gone through and attempting to be a mother. Yeah, once the uncle arrives, he's like very off-put at first. There's a scene where he goes and actually tries to shoot Ada, but he can't do it. And he starts to build a relationship with Ada, but then he tries to, you know, come on to Noomi Rapace's character again, and a whole complex dynamic appears between them. Yeah, the third act is absolutely wild. We're introduced to another lamb-human hybrid that shows up at the end of the third act and shoots the husband and takes Ada away, who we're seemingly thought to believe is that entity from the beginning of the film. And there's a lot of questions that you can ask about this movie and what is going on underneath the surface. I mean, between human beings' exploitation of animals and how we mistreat animals, or we use animals for our own selfish benefit. There's so many different layers of symbolism, so many themes that you could pull out of this as an audience member, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I definitely want to watch it again because I feel like, aside from those larger thematic elements at hand, you have this very simplistic story of a family who yearns for a child, finally gets the child that they want. See, like, obviously Ada cannot speak, but they interact and care for this bright, bubbly young child, and they're finally given what they want, but at what expense, and at the atrocities that they have to commit and do to be able to keep this child in their lives. Noomi Rapace's character killing the mother, and then dealing with this husband's brother coming into the picture. So there's a lot of different things at play, but the movie really stuck with me. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, this movie is fantastic. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews online about it. People saying, like, you know, oh, nothing happens, oh, it's boring, blah, blah, blah. Similar to what people said about Robert Eggers' The Witch, which I think is a brilliant masterpiece. I think Eggers is one of the best directors working in film today. But yeah, this is a very slow-paced movie, a very simple story about a family living on a farm, wanting to have a child, and you can perceive it as just that, or you can dive deeper into these more complex themes that are underneath the surface. But I think either way, it's a worthwhile experience as an audience member to watch this film. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Lamb. I think everybody should go watch it immediately. So have you guys seen Lamb yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say about these movies. It's always interesting to have some discourse or some back and forth conversation about it, because I always love hearing people's perspectives, even if they're different than mine. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your day.